Hello, everyone. This is the Backdrop Weekly Outreach Meeting for Thursday, March the 3rd. As is our practice, we will go around the room, give a brief introduction, I'll start, and then I'll pass it, and each person pass it to the next. Robert Lang, plug folder on the internet, and work on various odds and ends around Backdrop and infrastructure. And I'll pass it to Greg.
Hi, my name is Greg. I'm joining from Greece. I'm generally interested in helping out with anything that I can related to Backdrop. Nothing very exciting to report. Business as usual. I'll pass it on to Martin.
I'm Martin in the UK, and I lead on outreach on LinkedIn. And I pass to Arena.
Hi, I'm Arena from California, and I'm hoping for the peace.
I'll go next. I'm Tim Erickson, St. Paul Tim. On the internet in Deerwood, Minnesota, and well, a lot of work on Backdrop Live right now. And Sarvashri.
Okay, my name is Sarvashri, and I'm in North Carolina, Walnut Cove, and I'm interested in helping beginners to get started with Backdrop. So we can go to Joseph, I guess. Last one.
Hi, I'm Joseph. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. And yeah, I guess back to Tim.
Everybody?
Yep.
Okay. So I think our focus today is going to be, I saw Jen posted for anybody who hasn't noticed the tulip that she's coming, but she'll be a little late. Our focus today is on Backdrop 5, which is coming up in a week tomorrow. Just to give you a quick update. Our registration count actually dropped a couple today because somebody had registered for 3 places instead of just one, and I clarified with them that they did not intend to register for 3 places. So we're back at 40 registrations, which is still good. I think if anybody saw, I posted a note in Zulip a few days ago that showed what our registrations for previous events were. And the first one we had 68 registrations. The first one we had about quite a few people that registered and didn't come, more so than any other event, I think. Anyways, then we dropped to 38, 35, and then we were up at 57 for our last one. So I think we're on track to get up around 55 to 60 people. I had hoped things would go a little bit better this week. We've only had like 3 people register this week so far. I think an excellent job. Martin, Laren, a number of people have been getting out and spreading the word in social media. Irina, I'm sure you've been doing stuff. I know of about 10 people that I think that I'm pretty sure are going to register. Some of them have told me they plan to register. So again, I'm confident we're going to get to 50, 55, but if some of you saw my notes from last week, I was getting psyched up about getting maybe 70 or 80 people. And that's I'm less confident of that now unless we really see a surge. So anyways, I think that's kind of the status. Our schedule is fuller than it's ever been. We've actually, I went ahead and opened up a 3rd room in the 2 early time slots, which are traditionally our busiest. I think having more options, especially in that early time slot, is going to help with our recruitment and promotion. And those, well, I won't say that those are filling up, but we still have a few spots there. But I know of at least 3 or 4 people that have told me they plan to post sessions and haven't done that yet. So, and usually we're adding schedules on the day of the event. And even, I mean, we have more sessions now planned in advance than we've ever had at the end in previous background blocks. So our schedule is much fuller. I think we've got a much richer content landscape. But I'd like to see more people participate. So let's talk about that and what we're doing and what people can do. I put probably too much time into Twitter. I'm not sure that Twitter is really that effective anymore, although it does keep us out front in some circles. There have been some interesting discussions going on Twitter just about backdrop and Drupal 7 end of life for the last 2 weeks. Our name is getting mentioned more than usual in other conversations, not in any big or dramatic way, but we're just popping up as people sort of casually mention backdrop as an option. And by more than usual, I mean, 3 or 4 times compared to none. It isn't like there's a sea of mentions going our way, but it's been interesting to see even that. So I definitely think the Drupal 7 end of life has got people talking about us. I've seen that in other places as well. Anyways, does anybody have any thoughts about how we're doing on outreach so far? I have some specific things we can talk about, but anybody have any general comments? Irina, we'll talk definitely about the website and the schedule button in a minute. I think we should wait till Jen's here for that because she helps with the website.
And we're getting some encouraging stats on LinkedIn, getting kind of organic reach between about 50 and 100 for each post, which is pretty good. We've got, I think we're up to 26 followers, and we're also appearing in quite a few searches as well. So it's encouraging there. There's quite a few followers there whose names I don't recognize from the community, so we're getting some wider interest, which I think is good.
I would say our Twitter exposure is on par with what it's been in previous backdrop lives, but we're getting much, thanks to Martin, we're getting more. We've had more activity in LinkedIn than we've ever had before, and I've been doing a little more on Facebook than I've done in the past. So I feel like we're definitely doing better at hitting all the social media channels than we have in the past. One thing we have coming yet is I think we should do a second hit to our newsletter. Our newsletter list is like over 2,000 people. I think we sent about 2,300. Usually, so when we send the newsletter, we have the option of like just sending it to everybody, or just sending it to like active people. And usually, what I do is the first newsletter I send out about backdrop. Our normal goal would be to do 1 newsletter a month. During Backdrop Live, I've done 2 or even 3 newsletters in the month preceding the event. Usually the very first one, I just hit everybody. And then on the latter ones, I say just hit the active people. And by active people, that's people that have somehow opened or replied previous messages. So I think we hit about 2,300 people with the original newsletter. If we do it again, I think we might only hit 1,500 or so. But I still think, that will be another small surge. We'll get another at least handful of registrations probably from that, although we didn't get too many from the first one. And it could be that a lot of the usual suspects are just already registered. It could be that our sort of active and early outreach got a lot of the usual suspects registered early, and that's why it's kind of dropped off right now, is that because of that. Although there are some people, maybe some of whom are on this call that I know plan to participate but haven't registered yet. So we do have those coming as well. those are the only big things. I will mention, I just played around a little bit with some Google ads as well. And so I actually have a Google ad running right now for Backdrop Live. It's only hitting like 5 to 10 clicks a day. And I don't think it's, since I don't believe that, since I've only been running it a few days and nobody has registered. We've definitely gotten a handful of clicks, but nobody's registered that I don't recognize since it's been running. So I don't think it's drawing anybody in. I'm not sure that it's an effective way. Like Google ads are an effective way to advertise unless you get a massive budget. Anyways. Okay. Can anybody else? So I put out a list of things that people could do to help us promote it, include, I mean, a big thing that I'd like to see more of on Twitter is just, or on social media as individuals. We're getting a lot of people liking our posts, but what we need is more people to actually say, write something on their own if they can. So if you're already involved in social media, you can actually write a personal appeal, which is like, hey, I just want to let my friends know about this event. That's much more effective than just liking or even retweeting, right, what we've written. And I haven't seen too much of that yet. Usually I start to see that in the last week. We see a little bit more of that, people actually getting involved in the social media thing. But the more of that we can get out there, I think the better. What else? There are a number of Facebook and LinkedIn groups, and I've started to hit some of them. For the last Backdrop Live, Luke kind of systematically went out and found and posted messages in about 6 to 8 Drupal backdrop or Drupal either LinkedIn or Facebook groups. So we've done a little bit of that. I've posted on Reddit. Anybody can think of any more groups like that. What I think we're not doing well at is like getting on event calendars or getting blog post announcements or I think we really ought to have a list of like podcasts, blogs. There are a couple of like CMS newsletters out there or open source websites that I think would be candidates if we approach them to possibly mentioning our event. And we've not done well at really identifying them, let alone reaching out and contacting them. In the old days, an organization would do a press release for an event like this, and they'd have a list of people to send it to. I don't know if people still do that anymore, but I think something like that should be happening. We should be letting some of those kinds of sites know about what we're doing, and we're not doing a good job.
I saw every now and again when you link to Twitter, and Twitter only if you're not registered, which I'm not keen to do, it only lets you see a few posts. But I did see one near the top of your feed, which I thought was possibly interesting. I think it was something like I make FOSS, and it says it's like a rotational curacy. So I wonder whether it would be possible for one of our members to get a stint at that and to be able to say, this is what I'm doing on open source software in the Backdrop community. You're on mute, Tim.
I appreciate that. So Peter, I think, first brought that Twitter account to our attention, and we subscribed to it. And Peter suggested that we look into participating in that, but we haven't. I don't think we've tried or made any effort. So that's just in it, but not because we deliberately decided not to, but it's just never something that we've had somebody like volunteer for or take the initiative on. I would support it. I've been following it and kind of watching it. I think it's been an interesting Twitter account to follow, and I retweet it from time to time.
Mm.
Okay.
So I did a little search on forums for web development where people are discussing web development. And there was a list of 35 popular forums for web designers and developers. And those forums might be a place where those of you who are more knowledgeable might go and look at what people are talking about on those forums and maybe make some mentions of Backdrop in those forums and Backdrop live in some of those forums. I mean, those forums might be interesting to you for
Sure.
web development generally as well. I put that in the chat.
Sure, thank you. Having a list of places like that, especially if we have any kind of relationship with them, or some of them are more appropriate than others to go in and post.
Yeah, you'd have to see if there's some of those that you would be interested in because you guys are all in Word and web development. So you might meet some people there and be able to talk about Backdrop there. I don't think anybody would be opposed to hearing about Backdrop in a forum like that.
Right. It depends on how you, as long as you're not too spammy about it. If you actually add some content and a little context, that helps a lot. If you just say, hey, come to our event, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're inviting somebody to a free event on the CMS, the sub-development of Drupal, I think you might have some luck. It's worth a try.
I got my start, well, prior to my life in Backdrop, I was involved in e-democracy and doing online civic engagement. And we did a lot of sort of grassroots stuff. And we had something called virtual door knocking. When we did an event, we would just go out and find blogs, forums, posts, and then try to, send a personal invitation to the individual or the group in a way that wasn't spammy. But was an invitation with some information about why they might care, and that could be really effective. And we were quite good at it. And I don't do as much of that stuff anymore. And I think part of it is that the internet landscape has changed a bit. It's a little harder to do that and not feel spammy today than it was 15 years ago. But I think it's still possible. And I think that's what sort of organizing is about, is getting out and asking people. One of the things I've learned over the years is that sometimes you just need to ask people. And for the first Backdrop Live, one of the reasons we had so many invites is that I probably sent 30 or 40 personal invites where I sent individual emails to individual people I knew in the Backdrop or in the Drupal community and said, hey, you should check out this event. And I didn't want to keep hitting that same group over and over again. So I've slowed down. But it can be very effective, and
I think it's where you've got I think it works best. So I've been able to do it in a forum where someone was asking about how would I build this system, and it was just one of the options that I suggested, is that, well, you look for I think they were looking for a support ticketing system. And says, well, you could look at an open source system and then modify it for your needs, or you could start with a content management system such as Backdrop. And that was one where it didn't feel spammy. I'm not just going on saying, here, look at Backdrop. It's in response. And similarly, when you've got contacts who maybe, I've got quite a few people that I've helped with Drupal in the past. I either set it up for them and left them to it, or have helped them get set up, or have talked to them about a web presence. And it feels a much more natural thing just to say, I think this would be a really good fit for you. And I think that's what the kind of tone I'm trying to take with the LinkedIn thing. I'm trying to sort of, I'm trying to pitch it at, pitch the messages at the angles that people would be interested in. So try and pick, I'm picking different ones and just trying to pick an angle. And I think any of these other forums, it's going to be a case of if you're a part of it, then it's going to feel natural sometimes to mention it in a particular conversation, but not really otherwise. So yeah, as I said, personal recommendation, but where you've got a hook that you can introduce it without it feeling like spammy, then that's going to be the most effective.
I see that Irina posted in the chat a +1 on the personal invites. I know that's something that she's been pushing or encouraging. So
I think it is important to present people with something that's of value for them. So if I'm inviting a colleague, I'm not inviting them to join Backdrop Live. I'm inviting them for very specific sessions that help them solve problems that they're working in their current state. Like, for example, John is doing presentation for upgrading Drupal 7 to Backdrop in academia. I know that I have several colleagues who are looking at the same questions. So when I send them specific details about specific session, I'm not like doing general invite for one of online events. I'm saying this session will help you to solve this particular problem.
Yeah, that's excellent. Okay. Well, I think we can maybe leave this at that and just say anything anybody can do in terms of, and if you don't have individuals and you are able to, and I understand some people in this group have a less, their social media audience might be completely unrelated to Backdrop. And so I can understand where that is less valuable, although it can't hurt. But for especially those of us who have a lot of, either tech or nonprofit or web development people, it's good. Laren, I think, mentioned sending a note to a bunch of, so Laren works for an organization that works with a bunch of nonprofits, and they provide web support and website building for these other organizations. And it sounds like he sent out information about Backdrop Live to about 30 organizations that he thought would be interested or might be. So they would be more end users, I think, right, than like developers. But that's a good audience for Backdrop Live as well.
I remember the old days of using telephone trees, and you had a group of people, and you could start from one tree, and that would go out to 6 or 7 people who had a tree of their own under them, and they all had a tree under them. Maybe we could do the same sort of thing, except not using telephone. Maybe use either email or texting. If people would build a group of friends that they are in touch with on a regular basis that might be interested in Backdrop, then they could be on the list. And you can ask them if they want to be on the list for Backdrop notifications, so that they feel like, well, I've accepted that invitation, so I don't mind getting them because I agreed to it. So if we have a group of people who create telephone trees, as it were, that they talk to the people and say, would you like to get some notices about developments with this new CMS? Then if they agree, then they won't mind getting, if you have their agreement ahead of time, they won't mind getting these kinds of notices.
Yes, thank you. So let's move on. I think we should talk a little bit about the website. and everybody just keep working on the social media and the outreach. I think for a virtual event like this, where the commitment is very low, that people wait till the last minute. Certainly early next week will be big. We'll really be able to tell if we're getting a flood of registrations. I had hoped to see some more of that this week, and I'm again a little bit surprised that we really only had 2 registrations on Monday, and that just seems weird. So if anybody has any theories on that, let me know. Let's go to the website, and I'm going to share my screen.
I think that we all
Go
need
ahead.
to understand that this week
Yes.
there are events that are happening that are more important than absolutely anything that happens in our lives. We don't know how it's going to
Absolutely.
unveil, and it is very difficult for people to even think about anything else. So just my
That's a very good point.
I appreciate you bringing that up, Irina. That is absolutely true. And there are days where I question whether or not I should be, as concerned about this as I am.
well, my work helped me very much in supporting me, and people from all over that I work with came up with a very good support for me that says anxiety is not activism. But I think that every community in the world, especially technical communities, recognize that what's going on right now is just like, so just that's something that we all need to keep in mind. Even though we continue to work and do our jobs and do what we need to do, there are events that are happening that are impacting every single person in the world.
Yes. Well, and we're a global community, and it's impacting parts of the world more than it is ours, and we can't forget that. So I'm getting some emails from a relative of mine in Sweden who is pretty emotional about all of everything that's happening, and he's much closer to it than it is than I am. I think that is a lot of it.
Related to that, I've seen that a lot of communities have sort of like made a blog post with like publicly expressing their support. Drupal has done it. CCAN have done it. That I've seen. Perhaps we should follow. I think.
I think this is a good point. I don't know how we do that. Do you know how Drupal did that? Did that come? That came from the DA, didn't it?
Yes, I think it was. Yeah, it was at least approved. I'm not sure if the DA was the thing, but the wording, I guess, would have come with that. Are you looking? Yeah, there you go.
Oh, well, I started to, and then I forgot the Drupal. Go ahead.
Here's the link. I put it in chat. I shared it on my LinkedIn if anyone wants to check it out. Yeah, here.
Yeah, once I start sharing my screen, I have a hard time getting to the chat, so I can find it here.
I don't think it's a good idea to do what Drupal Association is doing, supposedly in support of Ukraine. You know, Ukraine had attacked the southern regions of the area for 8 years before Russia took any action. They killed thousands and thousands of people there. So my understanding is that Russia is trying to put an end to a war, not start one.
Well, I don't want to have that debate now. I think a lot of people would disagree with that pretty strongly, but I hear your point.
Yeah, I spent hours in researching it, and it's not what people think.
It's always tricky for an organization like ours to get involved in something like that.
Yeah, I don't think we should get involved in politics. I think it's going to just rub a lot of people the wrong way. Either whether you're on the good side or the bad side, doesn't matter. Just because the world is so polarized, I think it's better not to get into politics. That's my point of view.
I'm going to stop sharing for a second and just sit on that. I think it's something to think about. It might be something. If something like this were to happen, I assume it would require the involvement of the project management committee. Greg and I are on the project management committee. This has not been brought up yet, although we have discussed things like this in the past, and maybe we should at least talk about how we want to respond to this at all. Certainly recognizing your point, Sarvashri, but I don't think we can't really make a decision on this here, but it is an opportunity for people to speak up and say what they think. Let's. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen and go back to the Backdrop Live website. So where am I here? Events. Let's start out with Irina has raised the question of making the schedule more prominent. And just quickly, the history behind this is that when we first launched the site, the schedule was not prominent at all. And we added kind of a big button on every page. And then eventually we added the schedule to the main menu, and it was a little bit more visible in the right sidebar. So pretty much every page on the website does have a link to the schedule, but I think Irina's point is that it doesn't really grab people's attention, and it's like the first thing people want to find. So I think that, and some of you saw, she presented a design, sort of a way to make that button jump out. I am all for making it more prominent. I think the big thing that I was the one who sort of removed the original thing we did, Irina, mostly because on the individual, and we could go back to something in between. It was particularly on this page was really cluttered at the time, and it just had a lot of stuff. So the individual sessions, and so I was trying to simplify these pages, and I felt like, well, because we had the other new links, maybe it was fine. But I'm still happy to do something to make it a little bit more prominent. And I don't know if anybody has ideas. One thing, and part of it is the amount of work. What are the ideas or how much work they're going to require? I can envision the schedule being like a white button with black text in the header instead of a regular link, so that it jumps out.
If we can do that, so you said white button with black text?
Yeah, just reverse of what it is now.
Okay, with your kind permission, maybe I can do technical part, and I will have to leave at the reasonable. I have another meeting at 1, so.
Okay. Well, my hesitation in mentioning what I just described is, well, I think if we did that, it should be taken out of the regular menu and put to the right, which makes it a little more complicated. We could use CSS Injector to sort of do what we would, and maybe that's good enough, but I'm a little bit nervous. I'd like Jen's input on this because she's not here yet, is she?
No.
Okay. Well, she will probably come later. Irina, I will bring this up with her and mention that idea. And she oftentimes has other ideas too. And I think we'll come up with something. The other thing we could do, Irina, is if you think the main place that it needs more attention is on the front page, would be to create like just a bigger button. Maybe leave it the way it is in the schedule, but add it to this top block, or even create kind of a button in the event details. and make it much more prominent on the front page.
Yeah,
you think?
people are coming to, like when I'm sending link to a specific session. When I'm sending link to a specific session, if people want to look at other sessions, right? If you click on
Right.
from here, if you click on view schedule,
Yeah.
If you can, and then if you click on the introduction like this one, from
Yes.
here, live chat is much more prominent than schedule. And if we can figure out one way or another how to, and it's not the technical decision, it's purely like policy decision that says view the schedule need to be button like live chat.
Yeah, it could be, yeah, a big call to action button perhaps at the you could even above register now you could have a call to action button of view the schedule.
Yeah, that would be, because that's just a block, it would be pretty easy to implement too. So,
Yeah.
Let's chat a little bit more with that with Jen. I think we have a couple ideas, and we'll try to do something to make the schedule more prominent today. One of the things, and this is appropriate for this meeting, one of the outcomes of our 4 weeks ago when we talked about outreach, one of the concerns I was raising then was the implementation and how do we get beyond brainstorming ideas. And Jen and I have put time on the schedule every 2 weeks after our, so this week after the Dev meeting, we're going to try to spend an hour just dealing with infrastructure stuff, the website, making improvements. So it's, oftentimes we have ideas about how to fix the website, and then we never get to them. And so the goal is to try and set aside some time where we are going to work on implementing things on the websites. Maybe I'll just quickly mention, because it certainly falls in this, our main website. Irina had some great ideas that did get implemented. So if anybody hasn't seen it yet, we've made this change. We used to have this thing in this spot that showed, a website on mobile iPad, right? And it was kind of a dated thing and not really that useful. And we basically replaced that with these 3 blocks, which sort of focus on content. Did you switch the order already, Buck Folder?
Yes.
I haven't made any change.
Oh, Jen showed up.
Hi.
Jen has been doing things.
Hi, Jen.
She's been listening to us talk about her.
No, I wasn't listening. I just joined.
Hi, Jen.
Well, we didn't really talk about you, other than to say we were talking about the schedule button. Maybe we'll go back to that really quick. So Irina has been looking for some way to accentuate the schedule button a little bit more. And I don't know if you saw the one suggestion she had in Zulip, except we had problems with that. And our leading ideas right now, and by the way, I thought it was interesting. I just saw a random tweet today from somebody who said, when I go to a conference site, the most important thing I want is the schedule.
Yeah.
And I thought of Irina right away when I saw that. And I don't think that person was talking about us. It was somebody in the Drupal community, but I'm pretty sure it was not about us. Anyways, the ideas that we talked about, Jen, were like pulling schedule out of the menu and making it a button, like a reverse white button with black text in the header, or maybe just a bigger button in the sidebar, more than just that way. I don't know how you feel about either of those things.
The other bit could be under this text where it says so as a central call to action button in there. That's another possibility. Yeah.
That would be really helpful on the front page, but it doesn't help anywhere else.
No, you're right.
I like it on the front page, though. I think that's a good,
Yeah.
I mean, most people land there anyway. That's a good place to put it. My concern about taking it out of the menu is that for screen readers, the first thing you're going to go to is the menu. And if you don't find schedule in there, you've now
Sure.
lost it. But I don't think that means we can't also add it somewhere else. And we could make that a big reverse button in the header if we want, like having two links there is fine. Or we could put a bigger, like colored block somewhere that's not just, that doesn't look like anything else on the page. And I'd be fine with that, like in the sidebar.
Right. If the sidebar, which seems the leading contender, unless anyone has objections to that. Let me go to a different page.
The schedule page doesn't have a sidebar.
Right, but we don't need it. Jen was particularly, or excuse me, Irina was mentioning that she's sending people, and I do this too sometimes, is direct links to individual topics. So if somebody lands on a topic, having a link, a more prominent link here to like see the entire schedule. I mean, there are 3 links on this page, but I understand that none of them really jump out at you.
Yeah, and also that next step block, I think only shows up once you're registered for the event.
Oh, really?
Actually, I'm not sure about that. They might be.
I think
they might just not be links. Like the discussion topics just might not be a link until you're registered.
Just one downside of sending people that linked direct to a session is on social media. The thing that it picks up as the preview is this little disclaimer at the top, rather than what the session's about, which isn't so helpful. So I've been sending them to that getting started page that you created, Tim, which I think is quite a helpful landing page.
We can fix that. We can change the metadata for those. Yeah. I'm going to make an issue while I'm thinking about it.
Good. Quickly, Jen, I'm not logged in here and it's showing as a link, so.
Okay, yeah, they just changed to past instead of future for discussion and video. Okay. Good.
But, I could see making the schedule a button in this column, or I don't know if there was a way to accentuate it that made sense in the next steps without adding another link to just make that one more prominent.
But it could be above that, because as you say, the first thing, if it's the first thing that people go to, then it doesn't have to be a next step. They can view the schedule to see whether they want to come before they register. So there would be an argument for taking it out of next steps and making it more prominent.
Sure. That's another option. Let's not try to solve this right now. I think we'll work on this and try to make it more prominent, and we'll get feedback on the fly. We only have 10 minutes, and I think the other thing that would be good. Go ahead.
I have to leave in a couple of minutes. Are we going to work on this button in Zulip or where? What is the venue for working on this schedule button?
I think right after the meeting, or even during. I wouldn't be surprised if Jen has some things before.
Okay, Jen, do you want me to add do you want to add the fix yourself, or do you want me to do some styling? Because I can do it through CSS injector like now and then get out.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Just as long as there's a ticket where it's documented, I can do it. But if you want to do it, that's fine.
I can prototype it in CSS injector and put the link right now. So if you want to change it, you can change it.
Okay.
You're going to do it in the right column?
Yeah, we don't have any content there or anything. So
in the main menu. I want to do it in the main menu, this one. So it will be as suggested, black on white, or white on black reverse.
Okay.
And it will look very good with the backdrop logo, which is also black and white reverse. I think it will be very lovely.
Yeah, let's not change the header style just in the menu. I think that could create a lot of issues for us in the future. But we can add another one if you want something up there that's different, like next to the menu, we could put another just schedule button that's not part of the menu.
I have meetings for now, but
Yeah, let's make an issue
yeah,
and not try and do anything in a hurry.
got it. Thank you very much. I will see you all on internet soon. I
Sure.
have to leave now. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to talk quickly just about the overall schedule. Jen, as I was pointing out, well, you obviously looked at it recently because you fixed the layout. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
I sort of went ahead, I let people know I was doing it, but went ahead and added a third room. We've never had this many topic ideas, which I think is great. And I think it's going to really help us like next week as people are making last minute decisions and they come and see a busy schedule. I think they're more likely to hopefully make that impulsive decision to participate. Are there any concerns about the schedule that we need to address? Because this will be our last meeting before Backdrop Live. There are a couple of topics I know in the works that haven't been by other people that haven't been added yet. This block is actually everything is 1 hour later than it was last time, and I don't know if that's affecting this block, which is late on Friday, kind of late in the evening and Friday night. Surprisingly little action there. This block looks fuller than it maybe is. I'm twisting the arm of my colleagues to do a session on Backdrop in Bengali, which they plan to do, but it required a bit of coaxing. This block, this session was somebody put a comment in the this person put a comment in this thing, and I thought they were volunteering to facilitate it. And I followed up with them, and he said he'd rather not facilitate him, but he's interested in this topic, and I think this was a good time slot for him. So I need to figure out if exactly what he's looking for here, and if we want to find a facilitator for this or how to handle this. I just got the note from him a few hours ago and haven't had a chance to unpublish this. But unless we find a facilitator, I should probably unpublish that.
Automatism, what is that?
I think, so the description I think is a little bit more helpful. How can content be configured to be automatically gotten into a menu? I don't understand exactly what he's getting at, but I think it just has to do with automatically organizing your content in a hierarchy, like the book module does, or like a menu does with sub menus. And normally, if he were willing to facilitate it, I would just ask him to maybe try to clarify it a little better, what he wanted to talk about. But I can't really leave this topic on the board if we don't have a facilitator, I think. So
one thing I would suggest for the website is that the books that are being presented there are old. And if you go to look at the book reviews, they don't get good reviews now. So it's not really a good promotion. I think it would be much better to put some nice looking graphics and spice up the visual presentation with some photographs and things that show people doing development or doing something fun or doing design or whatever, to just kind of spice it up and make it attractive to look at.
Okay. That point is taken. We have only a couple, like 2 minutes left, and I wanted to finish with the agenda here, or for the session schedule.
Okay, that's all I have.
Yeah. No, thanks for raising that, blocks E and F are starting to fill up. So we've got a pretty full schedule, and I'm reluctant about adding too many more rooms, although I don't know. I was hoping if we got up to 50, 60 registrations, I'd feel better about having 3 rooms going longer. Right now, we get the most, the best attended session slots are A and B. So I feel like, especially the way registrations are going, we're justified in having 3 rooms there. I'm not so sure about on Tuesday yet, or on this Saturday, excuse me. I don't know, any thoughts on the schedule at all? You know, is there anything missing? Here's a question. John Romaine, am I saying his name right? Is it Romaine?
Romaine.
John volunteered to help do a bit of a demo or talk about his recent upgrade as part of the, so I listed him as the host, although I promised him that there would be other people there to help him. So he was sort of willing to take a lead on that. Today he suggested moving that later in the day. I had kind of deliberately put that session in the initial block with the idea that we should maybe have, you know, these 2 introductory sessions right there in the first block. I don't know how other people feel about that. Should we move this to later? I could see moving this to block B, although that's pretty full too, but we have space.
Yeah, my only concern is that I would love to be in that upgrading session, but I have another one at the same time.
Right.
I could move that one too. I just need to talk to Brian. He's the owner of the other site. He specifically requested that time, so I would want to make sure he can make another one also. I like having it in the first section. I think that's something a lot of people are going to be there for, and being able to answer their questions right away could be good. But I think having it at all and having it well is more important than having it in that first block. So,
well, I don't think John had a problem with this session. He thought it would be helpful to us to move it. So I think we just need to decide, is it helpful to us to move it?
It's definitely helpful to me. I don't know if anyone else has any reason to move it.
Well, I would assume that if that were the reason, which is a good reason, it's a really good reason, that I'm not sure that you might, that slot 4 would be better for you. It might be, but maybe slot 6. Or we can, you know, other things can be juggled around.
I think any slot's fine. I can make it work as long as I don't have another one at the same time. I can't do slot 5.
Well, I thought you might be interested in the business attack.
Yeah.
But maybe not. I mean, I'm sure you're interested, but whether or not they may, you know, do the conflict, that's all. Well, we can. I just wanted some input. We don't have to make it a group decision on this rate at the moment. Although if we're going to make the change, I'd like to make it soon because I think that's one that people might be planning on.
Yeah, I'd say let's move it to slot 4, slot 6. I would say slot 4 is probably going to be better for people farther east.
Right. You want to go to slot 4 then?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not going to do it right now. You could, Jen, if you want. I'm going to keep talking.
Okay.
We just to acknowledge that the German group was probably might do something. Somebody suggested doing like a upgrading backdrop in German, and I told him he should probably talk to the other German speakers to see what they thought of that idea. I have no objection to doing it. I'm just not sure if there's a big enough audience and if most of the people who would participate in German can also participate in English. So we'll let them decide that. But that is one topic on the books. There's a few others that people are talking about adding. And just for those who are relatively new, we don't object, in this schedule, we don't object to having very similar or repeated topics, especially because of the distributed time. So there might be people that can only be there on Saturday, and if they want to talk about something that's currently on the agenda for Friday, they can bring it up again. That's not a problem. In fact, well, we have an introduction to backdrop, and Sarvashri has a session on backdrop for the absolute beginners, and I encouraged him to do that on Saturday so that we'd have, those two topics spread out a bit, but maybe reach different audiences. Well, any questions or any other comments on this? Any other outreach business?
No.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. And let's wrap up this meeting and get ready for the next one. The real Nate Lampton is here. Bye.